Warm welcome, everybody. It's so nice to have you part of another Elite Mastermind, a session where I bring on board one of our elite agents, have a conversation with them to understand a topic that you may or may not have thought about. And today we're going to be talking about something which is luxury versus first-time home buyers and really what the opportunities link in between them. But before I jump into that, one of the big things that I like to recognize within EXP is the different types of agents. Now, when I talk types, I'm talking levels of agents. You see, for myself, I recognize 4 levels within EXP. Level 1 is really the agents as soon as you join into EXP. There's a recognition of saying, hey, congratulations and welcome to the team. It's so nice to have you part of us. So that's a level 1 recognition, which really makes you feel warm and really wanting to be part of this expansive team. The level 2 is when you do your first transaction. I know what it's like when I was an agent. When you do that transaction, you ring that bell and you get that recognition, it gives you that self-motivation to go do another. So that's level 2 of recognition is when you're doing transactions. And the XP, we like to celebrate every single time you do one of those transactions. Then we get to our productive levels, and that will be our level 3. At level 3, that's when you become a cap agent. That's a high level of productivity where you earn the 96% commission. It's 100% less that 4% transactional fee. Now, if you think about it, you're earning 96% commission. That is how you live a life by design. That is how you grow yourself to that next level. But what is that next level? Well, that next level, in fact, is the level 4, which is an icon agent. And an icon agent within South Africa is somebody that's done 35 or more transactions or have earned over 3 million Rand in gross commission. Now, what do you get as an icon agent? Well, you would ultimately be a cap agent because you've exceeded that certain threshold, which is basically paying 150,000 Rand to the company. What do you get as an icon agent? Well, you get that 150,000 Rand back in EXPI shares. It is an amazing achievement to actually get through to. So many of our agents that we speak with are really pushing themselves to get to that icon status. Now, joining me today in today's session is Christelle. And Christelle, I actually just want to get a bit of an introduction. Tell us how long you've been in real estate, how long have you been with EXP, and share something that really put a smile on your face or something that just went, hey, that was a great story to share. Give us a bit of an intro there.
So I wish that I had been in the industry for much longer than the just over 10 years that I've been in it, because I absolutely love what I do. I have such a great passion for this industry. I have been with EXP for October will be 4 years. So, and I have capped twice, and I have capped again now on paper. So I'm just waiting for the registrations to go through. Something funny that has happened. I can't think of anything else to tell now, but I went to show a property to a client, and she was concerned it was on the other side of the boundary wall, and there were a heap of stones. So I thought I'll climb up onto the heap of stones and look at what's on the other side to put her mind at ease. Did that, and I don't have great balance because of a very bad accident I was in many years ago. And as I tried to get off, I fell face down on the grass, and I had to ask the client to help me up because I couldn't get up from the ground. So I ended up buying a piece of land before the client could sign the OTP.
You know what is amazing is the stories that come from all of our agents are true, authentic stories. These are not stories where you could actually fabricate them or repeat them. So thank
Yep.
you for sharing that. And it's amazing how each one of us just shows the authentic nature of our top producing agents. So hopefully at the end of that, you didn't injure yourself too badly, because I'm aware that you do have some historical injuries. Nothing too bad, Christelle?
Nothing too bad other than my ego.
There we go. And as an agent, if you damage your ego, that seems to be even worse than going into multiple surgeries. So
Yep.
let's kick into what we want to discuss today. And really what I want to discuss is, we have clients out there, buyers, luxury buyers, first-time home buyers. And really when we start looking at these particular buyers, we're always geared towards those luxury buyers, because we want to go out and we want to sell those 20, 30, 50, 100 million priced homes. And we look at a first-time home buyer as, well, you know what, they're buying for the first time, they can only buy for less than 1 million. And we all know the amount of work that goes into a transaction is almost equal as far as the paperwork. But give me your experience when we start talking about luxury versus first-time home buyers. What are the opportunities that you see with each of them?
Okay, so from a first-time buyer's point of view, I think this market is busy growing again um, due to lower interest rates compared to last year. Also, what affects it is the lower transfer duty threshold. And I think there's a real hunger from young buyers to get into the market, especially where they see value and lifestyle benefits.
And I'm glad that you
Um,
brought up the opportunities. I want to just quickly jump in there. Just one question on that was, those growing with those first-time home buyers, you made mention of the lowering of the transfer duties. Are you seeing more first-time home buyers coming into the market? I just want you to add that little point.
Yes, I definitely do, because I think that part of a transaction is often a problem for first-time buyers. They don't have cash saved up, and they can't always afford the installment that comes along with including the costs with their bond.
Absolutely. And apologies for jumping in, but I had to get that little point out there. So carry on. You were then going to move on to something else. What were you going to discuss?
Yeah, so we are going to then talk about the high-end market. Um, I think for me, there's more opportunity in the first-time buyer um, because it's easier to get into that market, and you can grow in that market, grow your experience in that market. And if you want a steady flow of deals and a growing client base, this is where the action is. So if you want to already, double down on the market, I think that's a real gap that we can fill. And from there, once you've grown your experience in that market, then you can go to the other end where you've got the luxury market. But I found that it's a little more complex this year. Um, some high-end buyers are holding back because of the rate sensitivity, but there are still cash buyers and investment buyers that are more active, especially in secure estates, lifestyle properties, lock up and go homes. Um, and with luxury buyers comes big commission, prestige, and targeted strategies. You'll have fewer deals there, but significantly higher commissions. Luxury listings build brand authority and attract high-end clients. And it's a great fit for experienced agents or those with strong networks. It appeals to cash buyers, semi-grants, and overseas investors. And I think an opportunity lies there if you have not really grown and settled in that market to maybe tie up with an agent who is already secure in that market and experienced in that market. To grow from that experience and to gain experience from that.
And this is actually, you're bringing such a valid point to this, because one of the big things with luxury, and you actually said it, there's that prestige. You sell a luxury property, it's a prestigious. The commission is a lot larger because of that actual growth. And we find that a lot of the newer agents coming in, they want to jump into that because, well, they're chasing the money, they're chasing that particular prestige. But the
Yes,
experience factor is the area that is actually that's lacking for the newer agents that's coming in. I want to
that's
delve into just a slight digression from this. If you're dealing with a luxury client or you're dealing with a first-time home buyer, of the two, which do you find from your experience you've got more control in the situation? In other words, as a luxury client or a luxury buyer, are you able to direct them and educate them, or do they sometimes do the reverse, as opposed to the first time home buyer, where you can actually guide them and give them that kind of exposure of experience?
I find it easier to work with the first-time buyers because you can guide them. They don't know the market as well as the luxury buyer would know. They're not as educated as the luxury buyer is. So yeah, that is also where my passion lies, to educate the first-time buyer, to guide them ethically and with integrity along the right path. And they might one day then become one of my luxury buyers because of what they've experienced with me as a first-time buyer.
And to expand on that, what are the type of challenges that you've faced dealing with first-time home buyers? Because there are challenges that do come out with any buyer, but what are common challenges that you've faced with first-time home buyers?
So often, I think one of the biggest things are that they do not know what they qualify for. They have got a very wrong perception about what they are able to afford. And the other big challenge is that they don't even think about the fact that there are transfer fees and possibly transfer duties and other costs such as moving expenses and things like that to take into consideration. Some of them don't even understand that they have rates and taxes to pay or levies to pay if they buy in a complex.
And when you're having those first conversations with a first-time home buyer, and you can see they are green, they don't know anything. They're just excited because they've got this emotion that they're going to be buying their first home. Just take us through those first steps of how do you educate them and what do you educate them with?
So I would set up an appointment with them and sit across the table. I'll find out from them, firstly, what exactly their needs are and their wants, um, and then find out whether they have been pre-qualified. If not, that is the very first thing that I do before I start running with them at all. Once we've got that pre-qualification in place, then we can sit down and say, you qualify for X amount. This is what you will be able to get in the 3 or 4 or 5 suburbs that we've identified for you, and whether they want to buy in a complex or a freestanding home. And then I will start the search to find them the right property.
And that's that key that you start with, which is the wants and the needs, is so, so important, because so many times they actually don't know what they want and what they actually need.
Yes.
They need somebody to give them those particular guidance. But it underpinned
Yes.
by that re-qualify, because we could all love the 10, 20, 30 million priced properties, but can we actually afford it? And that's one of the worst things to do with a first-time home buyer, is to take them through a property that they just cannot afford. Now,
Yes.
you do get resistance from first-time home buyers where they've done all their Google searches, so they know more than yourself. But that pre-qualifier, how important is it with every one of your first-time home buyers, just to underpin and underline that? How important is that pre-qualifier?
I think that is the most important step of the whole process, because without that, you can run with them for weeks and show them many properties, and they might put their heart on something and be really disappointed once the bond approval comes back and they cannot afford what they've actually set their heart on. So by pre-qualifying them, you don't set them up for disappointment.
Absolutely. And disappointment is actually into the negative term, which is going to be negatively directed straight as you, as the real estate agent. I'd like to move this over to those luxury buyers, because luxury buyers, as we know, they know everything. They've been in the market for many, many years. They have that particular wealth. But the wants and needs is still important. The pre-qualifying is still important. How do you
Yes.
handle it with a client that is looking at a more higher priced valued property? Do you go through the exact same process with them, or do you handle them slightly differently?
I think one would have to handle them slightly differently, depending on where on the luxury level they are, um, because people can get offended if you ask them whether they have been pre-qualified, if they are in that level. So I would ask different questions, like, where are they currently staying? Um, will that property form part of the transaction? Um, yeah, those are the basic things. And then I would ask them what the current property they own offers and why they want to change. And that would then give me an idea of what they are looking for. Where they are staying would give me an idea of, what they can afford coming from that area, so, or that suburb. So, yeah, that is basically what I would do with a luxury purchaser.
So what's clear here is you still follow the same process, but you treat them in a slightly different way, because they've got the experience. They've possibly bought, they own a property, and you'd actually have those conversations that's related to their situation where they're at. Now, something that I want
Yes.
to add into this, and something I want to add in is, for many people, when we think of the word luxury, we always think of the high value properties. However, luxury properties does not always have to be in that particular category. You see, a luxury buyer can also be a buyer that is an investor buying multiple properties. It can be someone that you've been dealing with for the last 10 years. Maybe they've started with a flat, they moved into a sectional title, then from a sectional title, they've moved into a freehold, that moved from the freehold into a larger freehold, and maybe even downsized back into a sectional title as the kids have moved out of house. Now, I know over 10 years, probably not going to happen 5 times, but luxury buyers are not always the buyers that are looking at those high values as far as the property. It's repeat buyers as well. So, Christelle, if
Yes.
you actually look over your 10-year journey in real estate, you've had ongoing relationships with clients right from year one, year two, that you're still having dealings with, and they are giving you referral business, which you sell the property, you earn commission. Do you still see those clients as luxury clients, knowing that they're going to give you ongoing commission, returns, income for years to come, as long as you're giving them support?
I do still see them because of, where they are finding themselves, because even though they might be an investment buyer, I they still live in suburbs and aspire to be in the high end of the market. Um, but you become more relaxed with them, and you also understand them better because you've known them for such a long time. So often I can contact a client that I've known over many years with something that I know might suit their needs, whether it be for them to downscale or upscale or change their lifestyle, or possibly as an investment, without them even having come to me saying that they are in the market, because I know them so well.
Absolutely. And that's one of the key points that I wanted to get through on this is when people think of luxury, they always think of the multi-million rand properties that they could potentially get their fingers into. But a luxury buyer is a buyer that actually can give you ongoing commission, repeat referral business, and really have that ongoing part of it. And where does it start? But it generally starts with those first time home buyers. Because one thing that I've come to realize with my own personal experience, when you deal with a first time home buyer and they buy that flat and then they're ready to buy their next property, do you know who the agent that they typically call? And Christelle, maybe you can answer that. You make sure that they buy that home. Who's the next agent that they would call when they're wanting to upgrade their homes?
Well, we would hope that they would phone you again, but you cannot deal with them once and forget about them and expect that they will get back to you in 2 years or 5 or 10 years' time. So it's important to stay in contact with them through various means, be it a newsletter, be it birthday wishes, anniversary of when they bought their property, birth of a child, various life happenings, that you just stay in touch with them so that you always stay top of mind.
Always. It's always got to be top of mind. And do you treat a luxury buyer different to a first time home buyer after the actual transaction has been completed, or do they just get treated in the exact same manner?
No, I treat everyone exactly the same, because for a first time buyer, their 500,000 Rand property is as valuable and as important to them as a luxury buyer's 12 million or 3 or 5 million property is. They get the same amount of attention from me, and I make them all feel equally important.
Fantastic. So, big sharing on today. The biggest thing is luxury to first time home buyers. The big thing here is, in fact, they're just a buyer, and you need to treat them with respect, making sure that you understand their wants, their needs. But those pre-qualifying is so important as you're actually going forward. Christelle, I want to thank you for coming on today. Is there any final thought or comment that you want to add in before we open up?
Yeah, I think just in closing, I want to say we can build a hybrid strategy um, by working with first-time buyers to build volume, experience, and trust. Then we can use those wins to grow your profile and attract higher-end listings. And then, as I've mentioned before, partner with luxury listing agents to get exposure while you build your profile.
Brilliant. So starting with those first-time home buyers, because there's a larger volume of them, growing up that particular portfolio, and from that portfolio, you can then start to expanding, not doing it the other way around, and actually finding the challenges that get faced with all of that. But one thing that was key in that, make sure that you've got somebody experienced, because dealing with those luxury buyers can throw you off course with the questions that they actually
Yes.
ask. Christelle, again, thank you so much for your time, for coming on to today's session. It's always an honor and privilege to speak to our top performing agents, to find out their little tips and tricks. Some of them are quite challenging to actually go through as far as the topics, but the answers are authentic. It's from their own personal experience of what they've dealt with and sharing that with yourselves. So I'm so thankful for you to come on to this particular session. From myself, Stuart, and it's always a great pleasure to go through Elite Masterminds, where we open up those discussions with our top performing agents to help you in your career.